Welcome back to the Wow Factor. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Mann. On this episode of the Wow Factor, we head to the logistics hub of the South, Atlanta, Georgia. The ATL remains one of the most critical distribution markets in the country and is currently undergoing a mid-cycle recalibration with industrial vacancy rates stabilizing around 9.6% earlier this year. Today's guest operates in a market that serves as the gateway to the Southeast, with major infrastructure projects such as the Rapid A Line and the expansion of the I-75 and I-85 corridors. His team provides the essential flex space for a city that is always preparing for global events like the upcoming 2026 FIFA World Cup. Troy Wiley, General Manager for Advantage Trailer Rentals in Atlanta, welcome to the Factor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Troy, we're going to dive into how your customers are navigating this massive infrastructure boom. But first, I want everyone to get to know you and your location. So the first question is a softball, no pun intended. Are you or are you not a Braves fan?
Sort of. Born in Michigan, always follow the Tigers, but yes, I do root for the Braves.
Yeah, so I asked that because I interviewed Brian Bladen last week and asked him about the Detroit Lions, and he said, I don't know, I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, so...
Nobody's from here.
Yeah, that's true. So you lead one of the most high-velocity markets in the WOW network. How did you first find your way into this world of yards and trailers and southeastern logistics?
I've always had my career in logistics of one shape, form, mode, or whatever. But then I was given the opportunity about, going on 2 years to get into this business, which is one I'd never been in, and looked interesting, challenging, and I didn't have to do as much traveling as I used to do, so it hit home for me.
Excellent. So between the busy docks in South Atlanta and manufacturing surges in I-75 North, what does a normal day look like for you in the market?
The market is, as I said, it's stabilizing. There's opportunities out there. We're not as well known as the other players in the Atlanta market. We're growing. The hard part is just getting in there and getting our name known and getting involved with some of those opportunities. But what's nice about the South and the Southeast, there's so much automotive industry moving here, the tier 2, tier 3, lots of manufacturing. And it's some of it's off the beaten path. So the market, like the Atlanta market, it used to be, when I first moved here, it was 9 metro counties. Now it's 13. So it's a very large market, and it doesn't even take you down to make it. So it's a very large market.
You know, it's funny when I talked to Brian Bladen from Detroit last week. You know, you think of Detroit, you think of automotive, like the big three, but most of his customers are retail, right? Mm-hmm. So with Atlanta preparing for massive international attention in 2026, how has the city's growth changed the way the local businesses think about their footprint?
We like FIFA. I was here when the Olympics were here. That changed a lot for the city of Atlanta. They did a lot of things for the city of Atlanta. FIFA coming in, it's only here. I think it's here like mid-June to mid-July. So, and there's like 8 or 10 games. So it's a very short window. But watching the news this morning, they're anticipating 500,000 people to come in for a month. So it'll be very busy. The build up to it, very large. How much is going to affect my business? That is yet to be determined because it's such a short window. It's going to be short needs if we can figure out who needs it. I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be, food industry is going to be very big. Beverage industry is going to be very big. T-shirts and all that product, that's going to come in, but that's typically smaller type shipments than that. So, we'll do our due diligence and try and find some business out there, but it's going to come in quick. But the rest of the business and around Atlanta, I'm seeing it's cooled off a little bit, but it's starting to see where it's starting to grow on some construction site opportunities and that.
Excellent. So let's give listeners an idea of your territory. You're in Atlanta, but tell me about the territory, because I'm guessing that you serve customers as far north as Chattanooga, as far south as the Georgia line. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I've got if you looked at my current customer base, they're all within 70 miles of where I am. But I actually have a few trailers with one customer, a national retailer. They actually have trailers down in Tampa that are ours. I have a few that are subleased out for another customer. They're actually in Baltimore. But where I target my opportunities and contacts and that is from Chattanooga to down, typically Macon, Unadilla, which is 80, 90, 100 miles south of here, over to the South Carolina state line, and then into the Alabama state line.
Earlier, you mentioned something about the market cooling a little bit, but Atlanta's industrial vacancy has climbed to its highest point since 2022. In your daily conversations, why are customers still feeling out of space, even when the data says the market's cooling?
I think what we're seeing, because I have a close friend of mine that's been in that commercial real estate side for 30 years. And I was having a conversation with him last week. And what he's seeing is they're filling up what they have. So they're not taking down that extra space. So they are literally taking their inventories, their manufacturing right to the brink of before they step into a bigger building, a new building and that. So they're kind of controlling their costs on that. And that's kind of where we fall into that industry of they don't want to step into a new building to take on that extra expense. So maybe we can do something, provide them enough pieces of equipment that can subsidize and relieve some of that pain that they're maxed out within their building.
Right. So we're seeing a record wave of big box deliveries kind of colliding with softer demand. What would you say are the three biggest space headaches that your Atlanta customers are facing right now?
Some of the customers that I've talked to, they're in that smaller building to going into a larger building. That's one issue we're seeing. But they're also building, there's so many spec buildings that they're building, whether it's out 85 to the south, up 85 to the north. There's a lot of buildings, and they're all being built. They're all at, we'll say 700,000 to 1.2 million square feet. So, and there's no customers in them yet. They just finished a few that are within 5 miles of us. They're empty. Parking lots are clean. But obviously they built them, so there's plans for something to come here in the future. And then, there's other industry that they're still building, like the Hyundai Kia electric plant, which is up near Rome, Georgia, and Cartersville. That's on 400 acres of land. It's a massive facility, but it's only 25 to 30% built right now, so it's got a ways to go. So, I mean, there's lots of industry that's moving in here. You've got so many automotive plants that were built here within the last 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, so let's talk about submarkets, because you mentioned Rome and Cartersville, right? You've got Kennesaw and Ackworth. We're seeing availability jump in those areas to like 13%. Tell me about a recent week where a customer in one of those high growth areas realized that even with new buildings going up, like you've said, they need a mobile storage solution today.
Yeah, I had one. It was end of the year last year. They had a high influx of containers coming in because it was a race against the tariffs, and I was able to provide them as they were stripping containers, just put them in the trailers, and then we did some lot storage for them, and they also then they stored other ones on their lot as well. So that was one situation where we were able to provide them. We gave them 35 trailers to store on our lot. They also had another 10. Then they had a competitor that had another 14 on there. So, they had upwards of close to 100 trailers in the peak when they were importing.
A lot of leaders still see storage trailers as a temporary fix for a messy yard, right? It's that Band-Aid. Now, you've helped customers avoid the trap of signing long-term warehouse leases in a fluctuating market. I've heard stories about that. How do you coach an Atlanta operations manager to see mobile storage as a strategic choice rather than just that temporary Band-Aid?
Yeah, some of the discussions you got to have is if it's a production facility, are they running 2 or 3 operations? Are they maxed out on their production? Is their warehouse or wherever they store their products on that, are those maxed out? If they're getting close to that limit, but they can't get executives to buy off on the next space because the executives could see the orders farther out that this is a short-term need. that's where it's not the easiest sell, but you can give them options and say, look, you can go take a temporary building down, or you can go into temporary trailers and lock them in tight on a yard and use as little space as possible until that wave of production or need or capacity or whatever has passed by. Then they just give them back to us when they're done with it. So, it's kind of a math game, and it leads itself well to those that are having high production, low space ability without the approval to expand. So the option is the trailer.
Absolutely. We often compare Atlanta's automotive growth to Detroit. And you mentioned the automotive industry earlier. How do the needs of an EV supplier in Georgia differ from the traditional manufacturers you see in other parts of the country?
Working with one of the EV suppliers out east of here, he's using our trailers. They do the remanufacturing of the batteries for the cars. And what he's doing is he's storing all of the crates that they put them in, because he needs his space to store the batteries inside. The wood is not temperamental to temperature, hot, cold, or humidity. So he's storing his product, the crates that the batteries go in for shipping it back to the dealerships. That's what he's using ours for. I've got another battery manufacturer that's up 85 from us, and he's using us, again, just store lumber and casings and whatever they need, just the raw materials that he needs the space for in the warehouse.
Yeah, that saves them space, and it saves them time in the long run, too. Walk me through a time when a customer was ready to commit to one of those big, expensive buildings that we talked about, right? The lease in Fulton County or somewhere else, and you showed them how a drop lot strategy could really save their budget. Yeah,
this was a retailer a retailer wholesaler. Their products are sold at Home Depot and Lowe's and Target and TJ Maxx. But what they were having is they weren't unloading containers fast enough. They had so many containers coming in that they just couldn't keep up. They only had 35 dock doors to work with. So I just did a cold call, walked in there, introduced myself to the plant manager. We had a good discussion on what they're doing. And I used to run some warehouses out in California, and I gave them some ideas on how they can alleviate the pain of what they were doing on the demurrage, because when I met them, it was midsummer, and they had already spent $300,000 in demurrage because they had 12 containers always sitting on the lot. They just couldn't turn them fast enough, and they had products sitting in the aisles, all the things that the fire marshals don't want to see. So I said, look, here's some options. Let's look at what we can do. And I showed them what I used to do in California on how to use an empty trailer, and you put a container on each side, and how to clean out a dock very quickly. And they adopted that thing that I learned 20 years ago. And then we quickly got them up to speed on turning containers over and getting them back to the steamship lines. So, that was one that really worked well and worked as planned.
Atlanta is quickly becoming like Orlando and Las Vegas. They're always hosting something. With global investments pouring into the city, have you seen those panic calls from businesses that realize that their current site could not handle the temporary surge in inventory?
Yeah, and I've seen that, and I've also seen, because of the tariff issues we had last year, they had a large influx of containers coming in a very short window. So that created issues for them. And what I saw was facilities that were in older buildings. They'd been there for years, and they didn't have the ability to get to a larger building. Now, there's been a few that have moved to bigger buildings, and we had them as customers, and since they went to a bigger space, they no longer needed our product, and that's okay. I mean, we're there to support them when they fill that one up. But the import side is, with the Port of Savannah being as large as it is, and the amount of volume, and we're only 4 hours from Savannah. There's a lot of influx of import that goes through Atlanta that is either offloaded here or transloaded here, as well as down in the port.
Yeah, so you got the Port of Atlanta, you got Mobile, you got some of the ports in Florida that all feed up into your area.
Yep. And one thing to add to that, Mark, is one thing that state of Georgia is doing is they're building an inland port up north of Gainesville, which what that means is They will take the containers, put them on train from the port of Savannah, bring them up to Gainesville, and then strip them from there and then sort them out. So, I mean, they're getting some of the tractors off the road.
And there's a lot of strategy in that. And that, you know, that's something that we really want the mindset to change is let's create a strategy rather than that hair on fire Band-Aid stuff, right? So what do you think changes for a crisis customer in the first 48 hours after your team lands and a fleet of 53-foot dry vans are on their lot?
We've got they will now have the ability to alleviate some of the pain that they have going on, whether it's product or whip or whatever they have going on inside their building. It will give them working space. And then from there, we can work with them on leaving the trailers on the yard, spotting them somewhere on their yard, bring them back here. So there's options, what they need, and flexibility, having a large enough yard to either bring their product back, or if they've got a large enough yard, they could still leave it. And then we can work with them on moving the trailers around when they need them.
Yeah, so you've been doing this for about 20 years, you said. In your experience, what separates those companies that recover quickly from a space crisis from those who just keep fighting the same problem month after month, year after year?
I would have to say those that aren't afraid to take a little bit of risk. Those that have the ability to take the little bit of risk and go to the next level and step out there. And the beauty of our trailers, it is that stepping stone that gets them from, we're landlocked in this small building. Okay, we've maxed it out. We could put stuff in the trailer, but then they can also give them the option to start looking for what's the next step for them. And if they've got that ability and they've got the funding to do it, that's where we can really support what they're doing. The whole step of the way in the transition from the current location to the new location and all of the things that go on in between.
All right, I'm going to ask you to put on your CFO hat, put on your budget hat for a minute, and let's get into the math of some of this stuff. So without naming names, tell me about one of your customers who saw a clear financial win on demurrage or detention fees by switching to a mobile storage model.
Oh, absolutely. By going into the trailer, demurrage can range from $75 to $150 a day. Okay. A trailer, what they spend in 2 days pays for a trailer for the month. So it's real easy math to get them to match up and say, look, I can save you a lot of money very quickly, and I'll show you how to do it. And it's as fast as they can unload that they can reload, and then they can start turning those containers. And it is amazing that they never thought of using a trailer instead of a container. It is where some people that's the way they've always done it. And they've never had anybody approach them and ask them, say, there's better ways to do it. There's ways to save lots and lots of money. You're just giving money back to the steamship lines who already made a lot of money off that move. So why give them more than they need?
So a lot of your job really is just educating them, right?
Correct.
Teaching them about the math.
Correct. Yeah. And if you go to compare a facility, if they're looking for, more square footage, and buildings go now from, $6 to $9 a square foot. And my trailer is about $1 a square foot or less. And that includes all the transportation, everything in between. So, I mean, that's where you could sit down with them. If they're looking for concrete versus a trailer, how much space do you really need? That's where you got to sit down with them and say, what are you doing? What do you anticipate? And that's the beauty of a trailer is you can add trailers if it's more than they anticipate. And if it's less, you don't have to give them as many trailers. And if they really miss on the math and they do need a building, it's a trailer is a great relief valve until they can figure out what to do next.
Yeah, you hit on that $6 to $9 a square foot topic. And that's really where Atlanta rents are averaging. If someone asked you to compare what a WOW mobile storage plan would be, how would you walk them through that math?
We'd have to look at what they want to do with the trailer, what they're going to store in the trailer, what the throughput's going to be. Is it going to just sit in there for a long time? Is it a product that's going to move? What I always suggest is let's look at your warehouse and let's see how it's laid out. I mean, typically in a warehouse, you have an A product, B product, a C product. A product moves very fast. B doesn't move as quickly. And then you have C product that is just aging and getting old. That C product is a product that typically I suggest put in a trailer because you don't have any orders that being applied to it. And you can assign a trailer. If you have a good enough robust system for a warehouse management system, a WMS system, you can assign a trailer number as a location. Then you never lose visibility. You always know where that product is. So that is what I always suggest is put your slow moving or no moving stuff that's just aging. That's the primary stuff to get in your trailer. And if you have more than 20% of your warehouse that's C product, that's going to open up so much more space for you, and it's going to reduce your costs.
Yeah, so $6 to $9 a square foot versus what are you looking at? $1, $2 a square foot?
Yeah, and that's all in cost. That's delivery. That's the rent. That's everything. It's so insignificant compared to the cost of concrete.
Yeah, I just looking at the country in general, when I was doing the math on storage trailers, without all the transportation and everything else, it was like 87 cents a square foot for a dry van. I don't know why anybody would not jump on that.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is it's flexible. You can add more or take it away. I mean, that's the nice thing about our model. Our business model is we're here to help them. And if you need them for a week, we'll give them to you a week. If you need them for 6 months, we'll give them for 6 months. And if you, within that 6 months, you ebb and flow, then we'll ebb and flow with you. I mean, we will strategically work with you on whatever fits your model, what makes your business run.
All right. So we've got listeners in Georgia right now. So let's give them a playbook kind of. So if a manager is out of space and out of budget today, what's the one thing you would tell them to do before they even pick up the phone and call you?
Look at that C product and look what's in your aisles. Do a quick calculation. How many pallets is it? How many containers is it? What is it? And then a standard trailer, 26 skids per 53-foot trailer, single stack. So you can quickly go through and ascertain, quickly count and say, how much space am I going to gain back? And then you'll know how many trailers you're going to need, And then the other thing to look at is how many doors do they have? And are they going to store on the trailer, on the dock, or are they going to have to move it off? So, that's really what I start to look at is what do you have? Do your count, get a rough idea, and then let's talk about some options.
Do you have customers that actually store their stuff on your lot?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got a lot of storage there too.
Yeah, I've got 4.5 acres of land. Right now I have 40 trailers roughly that have customer product on it. And then one customer, they're fairly close. And we move 1 or 2 trailers from here to there, and then they bring them back. So they use us just like it's supposed to work.
A lot of that C product sitting right there on your yard, Troy.
Yep.
A lot of your customers are industrial suppliers, and as we've already mentioned, automotive. But as you know, those 450 square foot boxes can be used for almost anything.
Right.
What is the most unusual use case that you've seen for our trailers in your market?
We have a distiller in Atlanta, and they used one of my pup trailer or 48 footers last year to cook the bourbon in the barrel. They have 91 barrels that will fit in a 48 foot trailer, and that's how they did it last year.
Sounds a lot like
smelling
Louisville,
trailer
Kentucky.
I've got. It is the best smelling trailer I have.
It's so funny. So they're using it for vices because I talked to Jeremy Fairman down in North Carolina, and he said during tobacco season they use those trailers to store tobacco.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things you could put in a trailer that you forget. Like in that same bourbon distiller this year, they're taking a 53 footer and they're gonna because they've increased their production. They're actually going to use the 48 footer again for cooking some more bourbon. And then they are also taking the 53 to put all of the bottles and stuff in it so they have more room to age the barrels inside the warehouse. So
yeah, you forget about all that little ancillary stuff, right? So labels, bottles, all the things that go into the bourbon industry. That's great. So I've heard stories from your colleagues who have told me that they have saved customers millions of dollars a year by offering a couple hundred dry vans for storage instead of leased warehouse space like we've discussed. What's the best problem-solving or cost-saving story that you have in your market?
I would say the best one I have right now is a current one where it's a tier 2 automotive. They have a plant in Lawrenceville. They have an older DC that's within 5 miles of there. They have a new DC that's 30 miles up the road. They're making some transitions on it, and they're putting, they have 60 trailers that they're temporarily using to empty out the old warehouse, keep production running. And then as they keep moving into the new warehouse, they just keep feeding those trailers up there. So for them, it's the perfect scenario of keeping the warehouses running, keep knowing where the product is, keeping production running, and it's all seamless and quiet, and nobody knows what's going on unless you're one of the drivers shuttling the trailers.
And it's saving them a ton of money.
Absolutely. And again, it's a short-term fix. We're filling what they need. But for them, it is not bottlenecking anything. So, and it's moving current production, finished goods that go retail up to their place in Pendergrass. So it's a great solution for them.
All right, Troy, it's time for the signature round. I'm going to get a little personal here. Let's step away from the title, general manager. What was the specific moment in your career when you thought, this is my world, right? Sales, warehouses, trailers, this Atlanta grind. Yep.
When I finished college, I was an industrial engineer, and I worked for a small parcel company. They're everywhere. It's color brown. And I did that for a few years, and I found out, I was like, industrial engineering, that's for me. It was very boring. So I got the opportunity to get into operations and sales and work my way into doing that. And then also got into I've touched many different transportation industries out there, and I've enjoyed every one that I've done them all. Parcel, warehousing, truckload, brokerage, import, export. Now I'm doing trailers. There's pretty much the only thing I've never touched is air freight. The only industry I've never touched.
Wow. Now we know what's next, right?
Yeah. No, thanks.
So when you get home and shut it down for the evening, what pulls you away from freight and space so you can show up for your team the next morning? What hobbies do you have?
I don't have really any specific hobbies that I do. My wife and I, we try and walk every night, 3 to 5 miles and that kind of stuff. So we try to keep that going year round. We kind of got out of it in the wintertime because it was too darn cold. We've turned into sissies, as you get older. It's like, not interested in that anymore. But there's really, as you get longer in your career and you get opportunities, you start saying, okay, what places haven't I seen? I've got 7 more states to go to that I've not been to. Last summer we went to Maine, Vermont, and Rhode Island. We checked those all off. So I really just have like the Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, those center ones that, got to have some reason to go there. Those are the only state in Alaska. Those are the only states I haven't been to. So we'll get them knocked off here.
Absolutely. Well, I know a guy in the podcast industry who's from Idaho who might be able to invite you up there to Boise if you haven't been there yet.
Not been there. I have not been. That's one of those states.
So I want you to think about the best boss or mentor you ever had. And what's the one thing that they said to you that you now find yourself repeating to your team there in the yard?
Hold everybody accountable, but be super nice. He's older than me, and I'm in my 60s, and he goes, that's how I got through all the years of transportation. He goes, hold everybody accountable, but be really nice. He goes, and it's done him well. So great boss, easy to work for. He was outstanding. Learned a lot from him.
Great advice. So I've got just 2 more questions. It's been a pleasure. This has been a great conversation. 2 more questions for you. What is one myth about storage trailers or the mobile storage industry that you hope that we can retire after this episode?
One myth? I would say flexibility. Where people have a misnomer of putting product in a trailer where they think they lose efficiency on it. And actually, you gain some efficiency. You can lose efficiency on it, but you also gain efficiencies in the rest of the plant. So instead of focusing on that one item or that one shortfall, you are typically changing operational behavior or opening up space. So you're drawing, for the small efficiency you lose by putting product in the trailer, you gain tenfold by giving flexibility in other space, other product, access to other parts of the building.
All right, so we've got a lot of listeners in Georgia. So for anyone listening who is feeling the squeeze in the Atlanta market, what's the one thing they should do this week?
Send me an email or give me a call. We can help them out. I mean, it's go to advantagerents.com. Give me, my email is twiley@advantagerents.com. Drop me an email. Tell me what your problem is. Let's meet up. Let's look at it. Let's find a solution.
Excellent. They can also get you at www.warehouseonwheels.com. Is that right?
Correct.
Absolutely. Troy Wiley, General Manager at Advantage Trailer Rentals, thank you for showing us the wow factor in the ATL.
My pleasure. Thank you for the time.
I'm Mark Mann, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Wow Factor.